Okay, so first thing is you need to have a Tinkercad account. If you haven't done that, make sure and get that done. It's a free account. Just go to tinkercad.com. Link will be in the description. So once you're there, click on circuits, create a new circuit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is Arduino, right? You click this button here to turn it. You can zoom in and zoom out on the mouse as you need. Then we need a breadboard. I'm going to try to find a good position. First things first, let's go ahead and put our servo, and you could search for it here or you can type it. It's going to be servo. And there's two types of servos. Either one should work. Let me see what this kind is. I'm going to use the SM S2309S, and I want to rotate that. I'm going to put them about right there. Next thing I need is a potentiometer. This one I'll rotate 90 degrees, and we're going to go to pin 16. Okay, so we have our two main components. We're going to leave this potentiometer at 250k ohms. Next, we're going to want a polarized capacitor. So we can actually type capacitor, and there's two types of capacitors. We're looking for a polarized capacitor. So I'm going to drag one over, and I want these to be 100 microfarads. There's two of them. So the first one, I'm going to rotate. It's supposed to be parallel with the potentiometer, but I can't really see it. So I'm going to move it over here. And then this one, I'm going to rotate as well. And it's important to note that a polarized capacitor has two sides. It has a negative side and a positive side. It's very important that you put them in correctly, otherwise they will explode. Negative side needs to go to ground, okay? That's very, very important. Okay, so we have our main components done. Now we just need to do the wiring. So let's go ahead and do the wiring. First, let's go give me some 5 volts. I need some power, red, always, ground, black. Okay, we've got our main power done. And I want to connect these two together. On line 11, that's going to be connected to ground. So I'm going to actually connect this one to ground as well. So 11 and 16 are ground. 13 is going to be given 5 volts. And of course, the positive side of our potentiometer as well. Now, we have a terminal 1, terminal 2, and then the middle one's called a wiper. This is where the actual signal is going to be coming out. This is going to be going to our analog input. And I'm going to change that to yellow. So it's analog input AO. And then the next thing is we're going to connect our servo. So here's our servo. And this one's going to be the same one as our negative. We're going to connect it on line 23. And then the positive is going to go to line 25. And change that to red actually. And this one to black. And then our signal, the signal is on line 24. This is not even connected to that capacitor. I'm going to change that to white. That one's going to connect to our digital output, pin 9, and I'll leave that to green. And we are done with the hardware. I'm going to go ahead and explain what's happening here. These capacitors are actually put in there to help keep power going. Because once we give power to the servo, you're going to have a power draw, and it's going to lower the voltage. These capacitors make sure that the voltage stays level. Otherwise, the voltage will drop, and it's going to affect the entire circuit. So that's the whole purpose of these capacitors. So let's go ahead and start coding this thing. Click on code, and we're going to go to text, and you can delete the default code that's in there. Okay, so in here, we're going to actually be including our servo library. So the way you do that is you go hashtag include servo.h, and then we're going to be declaring my servo. Every time we say my servo, that's referencing to the servo object. And then we have an integer, constant, pot pin, integer, pot val, integer angle. Okay, so we are done with our variables. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach our servo to pin 9, my servo, attach. And we want to start our serial monitor. So we're going to go ahead and do serial begin, just like the other tutorials. And we are done with our setup. Next, let's put in our main code in our main loop. Pot val equals analog read. So this one's going to it's going to read that input from our potentiometer, and it's going to put that value into pot val. So pot pin, that's A0. And we're going to serial print some stuff. So serial.print pot val. After it reads that value from pot pin, we're going to put it into pot val, and then we're going to serial print that. So the serial monitor is going to tell us whatever values in pot pin, it's going to display that for us. Next line is we're actually going to input the value into angle, and we're going to use a really cool function called map. And what this does is since the minimum and maximum values of the potentiometer in the analog input, they're not the same as the values of the servo. So what we're actually going to be doing is converting raw value into degrees, and the servo has a limit of 0 to 179 degrees. So we're going to change the maximum number from 1023 to 179, and the map function does that. So I'm going to put some comments here that way, because this is very important to remember. So the map function scales values. That's pretty much what it's doing, right? And the way it works is it's map. That's the name of the function. This is an example of what it's doing. So you're going to have your input, which is the raw value, and in this case, it's going to be pot val, right, when we do it. And then the next argument is the minimum input value, and then the next one is max input value. The next arguments are going to be your outputs. So minimum output value, and then your max output value. And of course you close it, right? That's exactly what the map function does. This is the arguments that it's wanting. The input, the minimum and maximum of your input, and then the minimum and maximum of your output. So let's go ahead and put it in real life. So first we're going to call our variable angle and map. So what's our input? Pot val. That's where it's going to get that information from. And then this one's 0. That's the minimum value of pot val. And the maximum, I think it was 1023. And then minimum output is 0 degrees. And your maximum is 179 degrees. Those parentheses. All right, then we're going to serial print that. So serial.print angle, serial.print angle, our variable. This one's print line. And then we're also going to put that value into our servo. So we do that by saying my servo right, and then of course angle variable, right? And we want to delay that a few seconds. Let's put 15. And so we're done with the code. It's pretty much all we have for this specific lesson. Let's go ahead and see if this thing works. I have errors. Haha. I have errors. Let's go ahead and fix my errors, right? So I'm pretty sure some of you already caught my errors. One thing that I like to do whenever I'm troubleshooting errors is I'll comment stuff out. I have a feeling there's an error here, and I don't know what it is yet. I'm just going to comment that out. I'm going to start simulation. Nope, that's correct. That's correct. What is my error? Servo, my servo. I'm getting weird errors. I don't know what the heck's going on. And that's because I commented everything out. Okay, we're going to go ahead and try this again. Click on Start Simulation, and we have some variables. So notice how pot value is at 0 and angle is at 0, and that's because the potentiometer is set all the way to the left. And if you rotate it, let's put it about halfway, the servo will start rotating as well. And since it's about halfway, it's going to be about 90 degrees. Not exactly. I bet if I play with it, it would get there. And then of course, if I max it out, remember that raw value, that 1023, that converts it to 179. So this map function is doing its job. And this is supposed to be a mood meter, so you can actually put in some labels. Put in some labels in here. You can put in some labels. Here we go. So we have our 3 labels. We hit Start Simulation. And as soon as you start it, you know what? I'm chill. And then this, you can put a little arrow to this servo end, and it would point to I'm chill. You're like, I'm okay. It would rotate to this label, and if you're straight up not having a good time, max out that potentiometer, and you are golden. Okay, so that concludes the rest of this lesson. I hope you guys learned something. If you're having problems with your code, you can throw your code into the chat. I'll take a look at it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure that you click that like button. I hope to see you guys in the next video.